The What's Neat This Week video podcast is supported by enthusiastic model railroaders just like you. Additional support is provided by Athern Trains. Check out all their new monthly announcements at athern.com. And by InterMountain Railway Company, where the detail makes the difference. Check out their website at intermountain-railway.com. Further support is provided by Microengineering, keeping you on track with quality products for 55 years. Check out their website at www.microengineering.com. Order from your local dealer or order direct by calling 1-800-462-6975. Additional support is provided by TCS, Train Control Systems. Check out their high-quality DCC sound decoders, throttles, accessories, and more at tcsdcc.com. Further support is provided by the NCE Corporation, the power of DCC. Visit their website at ncedcc.com. And thank you for supporting the What's Neat This Week podcast. This is the What's Neat This Week show, our last show in October, show number 134 here on October 24th, 2020, guys. Beautiful day today, thank you very much, but it rained all week this week. And then long about on Friday, the sun came out. And I shot some beautiful pictures outside, but before I go into that, let me tell you the great people we've got on this evening. First of all the way out in Skype land on the East Coast, I've got Dan Mycio from TCS. Hello, Dan.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Dan.
You're awesome. I can't wait to hear what you have to say tonight. Also on the show, I've got Mike Budde.
Hey,
hello,
everybody.
Mike. And you've got your VertiPack on the table.
Yeah, I
How
brought
about
that for Dan. Yeah.
That's right. I've also got Campbell Rice.
Hello, everybody.
This evening. Hello, Campbell.
Hello.
Also, we've got some amazing freight cars on the table tonight, and they keep rolling into each other because we don't have enough wheel stops on the table. And first of all, I want to talk about these beautiful InterMountain N-scale auto racks. This is a partnership with Fox Valley that InterMountain came out with these beautiful racks, and the point of these is I shot them outside, but you can actually see through them. Have you looked at these?
Yes, that is amazing.
The fidelity
Detail word for
and
N-scale.
N-scale, that is amazing.
It is totally amazing.
Perforated panels.
Yep.
As an N-scaler myself, I really appreciate that.
I'll bet.
Because I don't have any auto racks right now. I've been waiting on them to come out with the see-through ones.
Yeah.
So that I could actually model some real cars inside those
Right.
auto racks.
Yep.
and put them on
Here
my
they are.
You can do that very well with
Yeah,
these.
you can see through
No
the
problem. No problem.
First of all, the UP one that we shot here, I photographed that outside on a small N-scale diorama that I don't use very often, and that's number 963622. And it looked good out there in the sunlight with those panels. I also shot it on top so you guys could see the roof detail and the end detail. These doors are brass doors, from what I was told. Really nice the way they stamped those doors on the end. Also, the second unit that we've got is CP Rail 543011. And I shot that also from the side, as you can see. Just the sun came out that day. I was so happy on. And the top, I shot that also as well. The days are a lot shorter. I've got to get these photographs done by 2 p.m. generally, and then I start losing the quality of light as opposed to summertime when I can shoot almost until 6.
Yeah.
So the days have definitely gotten shorter. The other model that I'm excited to talk about tonight, and that are these flat cars. And these are the InterMountain flat cars. And I will tell you that you've got to get them from your hobby shop because InterMountain, these are so popular that they've actually sold out at the main warehouse, and they're all in the hobby shops now. And this is the go-to flat car that you go to when you want to do a load. I shot 3 different ones outside. The Illinois Central, number 62780, TTX, number 93255, and the last one that I shot is the Canadian National. And I remember that one. That's this one right here on the table. And the amazing thing about them is the underbody detail. I mean, the see-through.
Lots of good detail.
Yeah.
See-through cars, yeah.
They've also got the wooden decks on them, which when you weather up these wooden decks, they look absolutely amazing. And let me show you what I'm talking about when I say that. In fact, I've already started showing you this picture. This is a photograph that I did from InterMountain back around 1998. And this is where we took 2 switchyard modules of the Midwest Valley Modelers layout and lined them up. And I was trying to create a shot to fill the shot with weathered freight cars using Mike Budde's oil paint weathering technique on every single one of these freight cars. And as you look at this shot, you can see the flat cars the way I weathered the deck. And these decks I weathered with chalks. There's not a lot of purposes on plastic models to weather with chalks, but when it comes to wood,
Right.
chalks work fantastic.
Right.
And that's what I did to weather these cars for this shot. Also, a long time ago, and this is what I'm talking about. When you guys need to do a load model and you're going to spend a lot of time building a load, similar to that great modeling that Dave Davis
Oh,
used to
yeah.
do, you want a base that's going to support the load and complement the load, and that's what these flat cars do because they're so detailed. Also, the rigging that they come with helps you in your modeling effort, and I'm going to talk about that. I had an account from Sweden, and it was Motor Art. And I remember working for Stefan Weedbecool. That was his name.
Weedbecool.
Super cool guy. Stefan Weedbecool was his name. And what we did was we shot all of the Motor Art, and these are in current production. I think you can see them. They're distributed by
They're
Atlas now.
Volvo.
They're Volvo products, that is
Right.
correct. And I strapped them down for the ad photography to create these amazing outdoor photographs where I put blocking on each end of the tracks, and I used the InterMountain tie downs. That's what comes with these flat cars. I got a picture of them right here. I'll show you on the sprues shot outside. But the tie downs themselves help in making the model look credible on the flat car load because they're straight. They're not, they're not real chain. They're not flexible, so you're not messing around with trying to attach chain. So you attach these to the model, as you can see in those photographs that I just showed you. And there's one other model that I did where I put a lot of great effort into it, and that's when I did these Columbines. These were John Deere Columbines, and I did a photograph on the Midwest Valley Modelers layout in the cornfield module, showing these in real sunlight on a Burlington Northern Intermountain flat car. Again, weathered out, tricked out, and I actually used real chains and the Intermountain tie downs on this project. This was an old Ertl model, as you remember. This is the Ertl Columbine that had come out. Is that what they call them? They actually called them Columbines. And I took it and I modeled it based on these prototype photos that you and Mike were looking at, Campbell.
Yeah.
And these prototype photos were shot in the Frisco yard, just adjacent to Highway 44.
Yep.
And I noticed the way they were loaded, they were not farm ready. The tires are off and they were kind of just sort of disassembled.
Right.
And that's what I had to do to modify the model. I actually took the entire model apart. I used 100 or so prototype pictures to back me up on what details the model had. I used real John Deere paint to paint the model. I reformed all the handrails on it with wire, brass wire, so that I'd have accurate looking scale handrails on the entire model, and just went through the process in order to make them look like the real model on those flat cars.
I guess they had to take the front wheels off to meet a height clearance.
Exactly.
Supposedly, yeah.
Right.
So what I did was I stacked those wheels up on the flat car and I just draped chains across them as per the prototype photograph. The other thing is a chute coming off the end. I had to cut those off of the model, and I actually put brass tubes on those to make them look accurate as per the prototype photos. A lot of effort, and when you put that much effort into a model, you want to use a good flat car to do it. And just like the Volvo shots, I spent a lot of money on the flat cars because it was well worth the investment to make my models look that much better. So rock and roll.
Hey, speaking of those Volvo tie downs, do you remember the night we were down here and you had a section of the layout missing? We heard a noise, and it was those flat cars hitting the floor one at a time.
No.
But nothing broke on them. Those tie downs held. The models were fine. The only thing that broke was the couplers on the ends.
I think what I'd like to do is take a couple of those and put them in the maintenance away color and put maintenance away equipment on top of it.
Right.
You see a lot of that these days with those type cars.
I couldn't wait to talk about that tonight. I actually looked through the slides before the show and prepared for this. And I hope that all made sense to y'all out there because it's very rewarding to make flat car loads. It's one of the most interesting freight cars that you can actually have on your layout.
Right.
Not only can you say I did it myself, you're adding vehicles to the trains, but it's so amazing to watch. I mean, remember the stuff Dave used to make?
Right.
I mean, wow.
Well, it shows the train actually hauling something, actually earning its keep rather than a closed-up boxcar, which you can't really tell what's inside.
on one show in the future, I want to talk about fractionating towers, and those are 218 feet long, and they run through 5 different flat cars. And for mine, I actually use InterMountain flat cars for the idlers.
Yeah.
Because the idler cars are weathered out. You really see those.
Those are beautiful.
So yeah, I'll show that on a show sometime. I can't wait to do that. Also, for further notice, I think I did an article on that combine in an old mainline modeler. If you guys have got mainline modelers, you can go through your library and find the article. That ran sometime around 1998, did we say, or 1999, Mike?
Yeah, 1999.
I remember the cover shot, we used the Midwest Valley Modelers layout and showed the cornfield with the combine working the cornfield. So I had to pull all the corn stalks out of the cornfield. I think I put an alloy form dump truck next to it to dump the corn into.
I think we had a Mac.
This is modeling, guys. This is back when I actually used to model. Before I was doing videotape 24 hours a day, I actually was a good modeler. So I won't say I was good, but let's just say I made an effort to try.
Sure.
And create good images, good photography, a lot of articles for the model press. So rock and roll, that's enough about what I do. Let's talk about Dan Mycio and TCS out there. Dan, we're awesome to have you on the show. And I don't know if you heard me talk about your throttle before on past shows, but I'm going through batteries in this thing every 4 to 5 days because I use it every day, and I really like it. I like that it works with my NCE system, and it works with my DigiTraxx system. And somebody on the internet said, oh, you make it sound so simple that it just goes to the Wi-Fi in your house and works with your system. Well, it works through the LNY Wi-Fi thing that DigiTraxx makes. That's how it works to pick up the system, right? And on NCE, I run it through Decoder Pro, just like you would your cell phone. Am I getting that right, Dan, how that works?
Yes, there's a lot of different ways that you can connect these things, but it all is essentially over Wi-Fi. The protocol that we use on the Throttle today is called the Y-Throttle protocol, which is the same thing you can find in your cell phones with the apps that are available these days. And so we can connect and control your trains the same way, just as easily as you can with the phones. And it gives you that tactile feedback. It's something you don't get with the phones. And you have a better user interface, in my opinion, as far as the ways that you can control your locomotives and your decoders. And we have a lot of features that we packed into this thing that you don't find in some of the apps that are out there. And so, for example, one of the things that we just added to the Throttle was our dual throttle mode. That just came out in update 2.0, which I believe was released in March or May, one of the two. It's pretty recent. And I can show you an example of that here. I've got my Throttle.
Is that the update that we saw James Regier put into the Throttle on that one show when we talked about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, so this is a Throttle which is going to be updatable in the field by you, the user, from now until theoretically the end of time. And it's a very simple process. We tried to make it very user-friendly. And so we have a tool that's available. It's available for download through our website. So if you've purchased a Throttle, you're thinking about purchasing a Throttle, you can check it out. That's our website, tcsdcc.com. And you can go and check out the Depot. And the Depot tool currently is only used for updating our Throttle, as you saw in the previous What's Needed video. And it's a very quick process. It only takes about a minute altogether to get yourself updated with the newest version available from us.
And that's cool.
And we're listening to our customers' feedback. We're taking as much of that feedback to heart as we can, and we're adding in features. We're going to continue to add features and listen to that feedback and add in those recommendations. And I'm glad to hear that you're going through batteries, because we actually do have a pretty impressive battery life in these things. And the fact that you're running your Throttle without it ever turning off, you told me that you set it up that way so that it never turns off. So you're running for hours and hours at a time every day. And at the end of, a week almost, that's when your batteries die. That's pretty good. And, you can expect to see for somebody that's a more casual user who's maybe running trains once a week on the weekends, you can have your batteries last for several weeks without having to take them out. And it's just 2 AA's, so you can even use rechargeables. You and I had talked about that prior to the show.
I'm going to do that. I know. I'm blonde. I've got to get the rechargeable batteries and stop replacing and throwing away batteries. Thank you.
Yeah. We support just about every chemistry. You got, your typical alkaline batteries. You got nickel metal hydride, which is a rechargeable type. You got lithium polymer, which is another type of rechargeable. So, it's our goal with this throttle, first and foremost, and this applies to all the products that we're going to be coming out with in this product line in the future, is to make them incredibly user-friendly. One of the things dealing with tech support like I do on a regular basis is understanding and listening to people who are newcomers to DCC, and they may think that the knowledge gap to get from DC to DCC is a bit daunting. And I can understand that. And so our objective is to make it as simple as possible, give you as much information as you can possibly get while not limiting the feature set. Some of the things that you'll see in the industry out there today in order to make DCC more newcomer friendly is to just dumb it down, to reduce the feature set. That's not what we want to do. We want to make sure that it's easier to begin with, not that we don't have as much there to confuse you. So that's what we've done with the throttle. It's what we're going to be doing with our command station. And it's what we try to do with our decoders, too.
Man, I love that T1 right behind your head. I used to have 2 Broadway locomotives in HO scale with those, and they ran through St. Louis. That was a beautiful engine. When you were talking about the update that you go to for your depot, the depot system, that's the website that we showed, the update also included something that you called macros, and that was with the NCE system, so that we could control our multiple accessories on the layout, including turnouts. Would you like to talk about that? Because that was an interesting update that you brought up to me, and you had to tell it to me twice before I actually understood what you were talking about, and it sounds cool.
Yeah. So in addition to the dual throttle mode that we introduced in version 2 of the software, we also implemented a turnout control system that was a little bit more improved over what we had at the initial release. So not only are we now able to control accessory decoders and turnouts over an LNWI connection, like you had mentioned for Digitrax, we're also able to operate NCE macros. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with NCE macros, it's just a term that they use for a sequence of operations that are handled by the command station.
Right.
So let's say, for example, I have a yard, and my yard has switches for track 1, track 2, track 3. And then I have a double main line that I have a crossover in or something like that, as an example. I can tell my NCE system to create a macro that lines all of those switches as it would be necessary to line it for track 1, track 2, and track 3, or so on and so forth.
Very cool.
So with our throttle now, through JMRI and a file that we provide on our site, you can set up your throttle with the file for JMRI to be able to program and use your NCE macros that you may have set up. The throttle doesn't support the option to create macros, so you'd have to do that with your JMRI or with your NCE.
Right.
But once they're available in the system, the throttle can actually see them, it can read them out. If you give them a name, you can see their name. So for example, there's a local club around here that has a couple of NCE macros on their layout that they use for a yard. And so you pull it up from the turnout list, which you can see by just accessing it via the button. And you can see the names for each one. And so you can pick the one you want, and you just push the button, it says go, and all your turnouts are aligned for that particular track.
That's very cool.
Man.
Mike's getting his NCE system. You already got it, didn't you?
Yeah, I
You
did.
just
I
got it this week.
Right. Yeah.
And that,
Chris.
thank you very much, Chris, out there at Caboose in Lakewood. And so Daniel, and we need to go to your house. And do we need to show you how to do it, or are you going to read the book yourself?
I'm sure I'm going to need plenty of help.
Okay. Well, you're going to find it to be really easy, because once you get that throttle in your hand and you set it up, it is just going to be like, it's like driving a stick shift. Once you learn how to do it, you'll never forget.
Right.
And it's going to come natural the way the throttle's designed. Their system works great. You've got choices of the big throttle, or you've got the smaller throttle. And this one you don't do programming on. This one's just for getting down and doing yard activity business.
Okay.
So their system comes with good throttles already. And at some point when you upgrade, that's when you buy the TCS, this WT100.
Yeah.
LWT100. That Daniel's been talking about, because I like using this too.
That's a little smaller and more easier to carry around, I would think.
It is, but that's the same thing, same token what this does.
That's true.
And are we allowed to say that you guys are coming out with, well, of course, it's on your website, you've got video. They're coming out with a smaller throttle than this.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So the mini throttle, for what it's being called, I think that we're going to eventually be calling it the UWT50, is the exact same feature set as you're going to find in the UWT100, the current throttle, the one that you guys have there. The difference is that we're going to be offering encoder and potentiometer versions. That's something that we'll receive all feedback on. Yeah, it's going to have a knob. I don't have any sort of graphics or anything that I can give you, unfortunately, so that you can see it, but I'll try to explain it the best as I can. So you're going to have the graphic display, kind of like how we have on the UWT100, same sort of deal. But in the center, instead of having your vertical encoder like you have there, you're going to have a potentiometer or a encoder as an option there with a knob. And it would be a little bit more flush, but a little bit wider, so that it's easier to hold with one hand and just kind of hit it with your thumb. We're also going to have on the sides of the throttle, let's see if I can get this right on the first try, 3-position double throw push button toggle switches, I think is what they're called, which is a really fancy way of saying it's got 2 little flicky switches that push in on the side. And that allows us to have the same number of remappable keys as you have on the large throttle, even though it doesn't have the chevron keys or the buttons you see with the little dots. We can emulate all that. We can have those features with these switches.
That's very cool. That's going to be nice because people like knobs.
Yeah.
I've got the Digitrax system, and the smaller throttle has got a great big knob on it. The smaller NCE throttle here has got people like knobs. I mean, especially people that have been in the hobby as long as we have, because we're used to our MRC throttle.
That's right.
And our Tech 2s and our Hoggers and all those different throttle systems that had knobs. I mean, and go through the list. There's so many, I can't even remember all of them. I like a knob because it's predictable. I mean, don't get me wrong, the thumb wheels are cool. And NCE allows you to have buttons, and so does Train Control Systems, the buttons to go up and down for speed. But I like a knob.
In a panic situation, I know what that knob's going to do. You know, when my train's about to crash into something, I need.
So I wouldn't call a knob old-fashioned. I would call a knob familiar.
Yeah, there you go. That's
and if you're
a good way of
designing
putting
a product and you want people to buy it, that's the key. So rock and roll, good idea.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep, we've received a lot of requests for it, and we already had it in the works, but we made some tweaks along the way, and so we're hoping to have that released with the UWT50 sometime early next year.
That's awesome.
Cool.
That is so awesome. Campbell Rice, I see you've got something there you want to talk about. This is a new announcement from Athern. What are these engines called?
These are the GP39-2s, and they've got them in several road names. I kind of drooling over the Santa Fe with the BNSF patch on it that's faded out. That's Crime for Grime, and that's pretty sharp. And also they have 2 versions of the Union Pacific, the earlier version and the later version with the lightning stripe on the side of it. So
those are cool. I don't have any of those to photograph outside, but we do have the D&H model that came from a previous run, and that's this one. These, of course, are a new model. They come with LED lights. The previous run D&H that I've got here has got regular light bulbs in it, and that's the big thing now. You know what? We were running some trains last night on Vic Smith's layout, and you were running your brand new Friscos, and those are by Athern. What kind of engines were those?
SD45s.
And Daniel put LED lights in those. And those things were bright. I don't know if I got video footage of those or not. If not, I'm going to run them on the layout tonight, and what you're seeing is running on my layout.
Now, I did take the shells off and paint the inside of the nose and the roof and everything flat black, because there was a lot of bleed through coming through the sides.
Oh, okay.
So I'm kind of anxious to see how they look tonight.
So what you're seeing on tonight's video is where you painted the inside of the shell black because the LEDs are so bright that they were shining through the plastic. I think Athern does the same thing on their models. But rock and roll, you can check out these GP39-2s on the Athern website at atherntrains.com. It's the latest PDF that I looked at, and I think the orders for these are due at the end of the month. So rock and roll, CSX, reading, a lot of prime for grimes, a lot of great stuff. We love Athern trains. I like the way they run. I like the way they look in my photographs. Now, yeah, we were at Vic Smith's layout last night, and I'd like to have Vic back on the show. He was on one of our shows, and if Daniel was here, I'd ask him what number it was, but he was on a previous What's Neat show, sitting right over there by the spray booth, and we showed some of his layout. The City Edge was the name of that magnificent layout that he built. It's beautiful in full light. It's beautiful in the dark. The one thing that stuck out in my mind was the What's Neat This Week boxcar that he had running on it. I've got 2 video clips of that. I'm probably going to show you one of them right now. But thank you very much, Vic, for having the entire podcast crew over at your place. We stood by the layout there, and I think we all gave a wave.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of hanging out and relaxing, which was really nice to hang out with the podcast crew and not have to shoot a show.
Yeah.
It's kind of special and very different to me, because every time we get together, we're working, right? Now, Campbell Rice, you've got some cool stuff you wanted to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I brought, Mike always brings his cars and things to show off, and, I'll never be quite as talented as you there,
man,
Mike.
I'm drooling over that Illinois Central is something else.
Yeah, I did this Illinois Central, and they came a period of time. I guess they tried some stick-on brown lettering, and they didn't work out too well, and eventually they had peeled off, and then what was left behind it was the clean paint where they peeled off.
Yeah.
So,
now I always thought that was black, but that was actually dark brown.
Yeah, they're really a dark brown.
Yeah.
They look black, especially once they get weathered. But so I had to scrape up decals from several different places to get it, and one of the hardest things was on the nose. It's kind of faded backwards. It's a white shield with the black logo, but thanks to Dan Kohlberg and all his decals, I was able to get it together and got it done. And so I'm pretty glad the way it turned out. It's an XGM&O engine, so.
Well, those in the Sioux line, the white engines are so hard to weather.
Oh yeah, white is hard to weather.
Really,
no doubt about that.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing I brought here was these puff trees. Now, I opened an email from Model Railroad Hobbyist here last week or so, and if you're modeling anywhere east, your layout you really need a lot of trees. And besides using super trees and taking the time and do each one of them, which really takes some time, they had these puffball trees article, and that, I've just found that really fascinating. So I ordered some of the black polyfill off of Micromark, and it was very easy. You just pull it apart, you put it on a barbecue skewer, and then when you're done, you kind of cut the bottom flat and you just glue it. So they work good to create a forest in the background, and then you put your nice your good trees in the front. Yeah. So that's what I did. I just did just the black polyfill, and I put spray glue on it and sprinkled ground foam and some knock leaves on it and sprayed it again, and that's how that turned out. So I think when I get them buried into the scene, I think they look pretty good, to create a forest like area.
If that comes out the way you think it is, can you do a What's Neat video? That'd be a great segment for What's Neat, to show the background trees, the foreground trees, and how they blend. Right. And they trick your eye, and it gives you that much more credibility.
Right, yeah. But if you're doing a deep, thick forest, you don't want to spend the time building all these real nice trees where they're going to hide in the back and nobody's going to see them. Yeah. So you put these in the back, put the goats out front, and you never know the difference.
The trick is finding that polyfill that's not white, that's like a dark.
Well, color. That's what I got off of Micromark, and it's black, and I used our code.
Our dogs ripped open a pillow in our living room.
Oh dear!
And it was dark brown. I said, I'm taking this downstairs. I took it, so that one didn't get thrown away.
Yeah, it worked real easy, and it looks just like a clump of whatever here, but I think once it gets into the layout, it's going to look good.
Especially when you vary the greens a little bit, light and dark.
Yep.
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tools on the table, and the reason for that is whenever I handle a track, I like to use an NMRA track gauge. That's what I used to always use. But Microengineering makes these 3-point track gauges that you can actually put on top of the track and put a weight on top of it in the event that you want to glue your rail down before you spike it. And in fact, my third rail that runs around the entire 157 foot of this room,
that's how you did that.
I've got it glued down with the Plyo Bond glue. because it's a rubbery glue that attaches the rail. It's like a contact cement.
Boy, it's been holding up
Microengineering's
for a
got
long
that
time.
in their catalog.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's not spiked down, and it's been on my layout for 2 years.
Right.
Because it remains flexible, but it's still, and what you do is after you put the glue underneath the rail flat and you put the rail down for my third rail example, then I take the HON3 is what I was doing, HON3 track gauge, the 3-point track gauge here, and you put it on the track and it holds it down, and you can even put a metal weight on top of that and hold it into place. They make track gauges for G scale, they make track gauges that I've got on the table for HO scale, they make them for N scale, Dan, and
I could probably use all those.
HON3. You actually don't need one, you need usually a couple of them, because when you're hand laying that code 55 rail in N scale, with a couple of these on hand, like 3 or 4 of them, you can actually do, again, 3 or 4 feet at a time, because you space these things about 12 inches apart from each other, and it holds the rail into gauge. That's something you cannot do with an NMRA track gauge. So I wanted to point that out. They also supplied us with some different rail nippers. They've got a smaller one and a larger one, and I think these are the Zuron rail nippers that Microengineering sells in their line of products in their catalog. And the last thing on the table, they've got 3 different size track cleaners. We use these on the layout, and I also like these on the layout. This is the larger one, that I use to make my
that's nice.
track cleaning tool, where I put a breaker bar head on it. But 3 different size track cleaners, 2 inch by 1 inch, and another 6 inch by 1 inch long. And they're almost like that flexible brake material.
Right.
You know, it's that stuff that really cleans the rail, like an eraser for paper, but this has got abrasives in it. Not many people know that Microengineering sells track cleaners.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Well, I keep being amazed every time I come over, all the microengineering stuff that I really never knew.
Right.
You know?
And that's what's good about the show, because if it's something you don't know about, my favorite track cleaner, honestly, is this great big one. And they call it a Bright Boy track cleaner, 2.5 inches by 2 inches.
Yeah.
Whenever I get these, I get 6 at a time. I go down there, Fenton, I pick up 6 of these. Because it fits my hand good, and it works good for my O-scale dioramas, because I do all kinds of different size rail down here. When I'm doing ON30, HO scale, or N scale, I'm cleaning track for all the dioramas to do road-bys outside.
Right.
So rock and roll. Thank you very much, Microengineering. The last thing on the table that we didn't talk about, and we talked about it on a previous show, was in the blue bottle is this chemical, this rail weathering solution, which is what they use to make their weathered rail. When you buy Microengineering track, you can either buy it nickel silver shiny, or you can buy it weathered. And they simply use this solution, but it also works great on brass. It works good on just different scenarios. I've even tried it on my large scale rail out in the backyard, and it does darken the rail. So thank you very much, Microengineering, for showing us all the cool tools that are in your line. We've seen your bridges, we've seen your track, but not many people know that you've got handy tools that help us build our models. Is that right? Mike,
Right.
What do you got on the table, brother?
Well, I remember last time we talked to Dan, I was talking about this Vertipack, and I finally got it finished. He was kind of interested in it when I was talking about it back then, and I finally got the cars made, and we showed this before on the podcast, but I thought I'd bring it down here just so Ken could see it in person and maybe take some better pictures of it for you. But this was an Overland brass model that already had the doors open, and there was a center divider in there that was non-prototypical. I had to take that out, and then I built an interior with the inside bracing and put cars in there. Well, I redid the inside of the doors and everything too, but it's really a cool model, interesting concept back in the early 70s when they shipped cars like this. They only did the Vegas this way. So anyway, I thought I'd show that to you, Dan.
That's one of my
I was telling my
favorite.
dad about that. Actually, when last we talked, actually not too long after that show, I told my dad about it. He checked out the show, and he was really impressed with it as well, because he remembers back when they were doing this with the Vegas.
Right.
And I don't know if they ever ran any around where we live here in PA, but he was familiar with them, and he said that you did a good job. So
I think they.
Yeah, I like what you can do with brass. I am starting to kind of come around to it and considering it myself, but maybe not for N.
Yeah, that would be a tough thing to do.
That's one of my favorite cars that you've ever made. The other favorite car that you made was that Southern Pacific box car where the end was absolutely ripped out of it. I'm showing pictures of it right now. We ran a What's Neat segment that showed how you did that using aluminum foil, where you actually painted and treated the bent up aluminum foil as a model.
Right.
I mean, you
used
painted
decals on it and everything.
Decals, everything. Good job, Mike.
Oh, yeah, the other thing is this Trainworks trailer. They just came out with, I think, 6 road names of refrigerated trailers for HO scalers, and this thing is just, it's amazing, the graphics on it. There's people who lived when Kroger, you know, has been around for a long time. They had this mascot Toppy, the plaid pink elephant, and you can even read his name on the beret of his hat.
That's amazing.
So, graphics are unbelievable.
The refrigerator's got
right.
detail,
That's a whole model in itself. It's got a radiator inside and etched metal grill on it and everything.
Who made that model? What brand model?
Trainworks.
Trainworks.
Right. They're the same ones that did the drop frame trailers a little while back, and they're doing a second run of those too.
Very interesting.
So. Yeah, I was glad to get that one.
That's very cool. We've covered everything that we've got on the table tonight. Dan, is there anything else you wanted to talk about at TCS tonight?
I guess there's one more thing that I can talk about very briefly, and that would be our command station.
Okay.
A lot of that is still currently in flux, and I'm not sure what all I can talk about. What I can tell you is that today I was in a very long meeting with team members, and we were discussing consisting.
Okay.
I know you guys have probably talked about that on the show before, and I'm pretty sure you would all agree that consisting is a pretty complicated subject. And so I've been doing a lot of research, and the team's been doing some research on the prototype and how they're run in real life. And we're talking about how we can replicate that in the system for modelers to be able to hook up the system, put their trains on the track, put their locomotives in a consist, and run them realistically. So in tandem with the command station, we're actually looking at ways that we can improve that in our decoders as well. So there may be some features coming into the decoders as well down the line that make consisting more realistic. For example, not everybody knows that if you have units, especially older diesels, that aren't on the head end, they aren't necessarily powered. They're not actually contributing to the work. So you'll see often if you have a latch up and you have head end power and you have some pushers, unless there's actually an engineer in that cab helping to keep the tension on the couplers correct, that unit would be in isolate and it wouldn't actually be running. So we're thinking about ways that we can model that while still keeping the introductory level DCC guy able to do that very easily. So we're thinking about that, ways we can do that from the command station side, ways that we can do that from the decoder side, because one of the things that we like to focus on especially is the detail of the operation of the decoders. Prototype and prototypical operation is something that's very important to us, just in the same way that our sound quality is very important to us in our sound decoders.
Right.
So we want to bring our experience to you, do that research, and make it easy for the modeler to replicate real life on their layout.
That sounds amazing. The one thing that I do have, and I've said this week, you guys, I described this to somebody, you guys are very methodical when you guys are in pre-production and design. I mean, it's obvious on the design of the throttle, and you even talk about that in one of the videos you made, how you guys have the form of the human hand and how it fits around the back of the throttle with no fatigue in the event that you're on an operating session and you're holding this for a long time. I don't know. It's kind of cool. You know, I've heard that about the Bic lighter too. There's some ergonomics about the Bic lighter where it was designed around your mother's finger. You're holding your mom's finger. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
But it is so psychologically true. So rock and roll on your design effort. I wish you all the best in this new system as you guys continue to develop it. And you know what? We look forward to talking about it when it does finally come out, because that'll be exciting.
Yeah, we're looking forward to using modern technology, or at least current technology.
You're funny. Guys, this is the best hobby in the world with the best people in it. I want to be sure to tell everybody to still watch the current What's Neat video that's running right now. That's October, because we're still in the month of October. And that's the video where Tim Schreiner came to the studio here.
Yes.
And I think that's because you brought him by.
I brought him by, yes.
Thank you very much, Campbell. Tim's amazing. He built a scene from the ground up. He started out with a foam cast shell scene, then he showed us how to make rock castings using some amazing, it wasn't plaster, but
Ultracal.
Ultracal, yeah.
With latex molds.
It's all described in great detail in October's video. He walks us all the way through the process of staining the rock, doing the ground cover, doing the lichen, the trees, the scenery, all the way through. That video's got well over 20,000 views the last time I looked at it about 10 days ago. So rock and roll Tim Schreiner, hats off to you. Great job on that.
Nice.
Also, when next time we come back to you guys on November 7th, we're going to have Denny Yelsma from Yelsma's Graphics. I'm picking him up at the airport Saturday morning. And that's also when the November What's Neat will be out at Model Railroad Hobbyist Magazine. That's the other video that we do. Not just the podcast every week, but we make a What's Neat video which shows you all the ins and outs of building stuff. That's the video where we get our hands dirty. And in November's What's Neat, I talk about how to make the big saguaro cactus, various ways that people have done it. Also, we talk about wire bushes, how to make different vegetation for your layout, similar to Campbell's Street that he made tonight, whereas the small bushes, the small scenery, the honeysuckle that grows trackside is an important feature to get right. And we've discovered a way of doing that with armatures, and that's featured in November's video. And then James Regier shows us how he did that trackmobile, lit it up, put sound in it, and that was a very small model, a very big accomplishment. In 24 minutes, he shows us start to finish on that model that James Wright has now got in his possession.
Yeah.
So with that, guys, you know what? This is the best hobby in the world.
Absolutely.
And we're going to close out show number 134 right now on this October 24th. Everybody be safe out there, and we guys will see you again on November 7th. And at this point,
let's run some trains. I want to
let's go run some trains.